So it's funny, Chris and I started this because we were doing our board game days and role playing days. And we both just turned around to each other and said, let's start a board game business. And it pretty much went from there. With starting the business, it was mainly around commercial board games, D&D and that.
Mm,
Then Chris got into doing his laser cut products with Glowcraft, starting off with a little treasure chest for storing dice.
yeah.
And then when we went to one of the packs, we got inspired by a lot of the TTRPGs that we met through a couple of people, and then we're introduced to John as well at ARC, which really opened up our horizons on the Australian, at least the Australian side of the TTRPG, and hence why we've now moved forward more with doing independent games here in Australia opposed to the commercial side.
Yeah, and I would say, another inspiration for us was we actually went to PAX before we attended PAX as our own stand. I mean, we we pretty much put an application in for PAX the moment we realized this company might actually do something. And then COVID happened, and so we got accepted into PAX, and then we had to wait like 3 years to actually have our first stand there, which was crazy. But the great thing was, in a way, we got to attend PAX before actually really diving into this, and we met up with, I remember, a whole bunch of indie developers that were doing board games, and they kind of just ran us through their games, and we got a feel for the fact that there actually was an Australian community of games, and this was more board games than tabletop RPGs at that point. But yeah, we really just started with board games. We met like Keith DeFranks and Steve D and a whole bunch of other creators. And now we range mostly indie board games, and we pretty much don't sell commercial board games at all, except for Dungeons and Dragons because we're kind of have to. We don't really have a choice there. It is a great system, of course, but I think because it's a great system, it does kind of have to stay in our range. But other than that, pretty much everything we sell is Aussie now. And yeah, Terry started creating dice. I started creating my own laser cut products, and that really drives us as well. It really comes down to, we're actually part of this community. We're makers as well, and being able to support other creators that are just starting is kind of a big thing for us now. Honestly, that's not where we started, but I'm really, really glad it's where we are now. So one of the other ways that we engage in the community is to try and give back to the community. Conquest, for example, is an event that we've been sponsoring as a gold sponsor for quite a few years now. And, I will say the first time that we went to it, it was, a pretty small event. We know that it's been going for a very long time, but commercially for us, it was a pretty small event. But we didn't really care because the passion that was there and the feel of the event was just so much stronger than some of the bigger commercial events that we do attend. And, every time we go there, Terry and I get excited because we know we're actually going to get to play some games. We're actually going to get to speak to some of our friends. It actually is this real event, right? And I think that's where we really got to actually, have proper conversations with, people like John from ARC and, other creators like Wade, for example, who makes Fragged Empire, just chatting with people. I'm quite close with the Dungeons and Dragons Australia group, and we get to catch up with them as well. And, it's just those sorts of events are kind of also what makes it worth it for us. We are an online store, but we're also recognized when we go to these events and people come up and say hi, and we have the same people that always come and say hello. And like for us, our physical store, if it will, is the stands that we run more so
Yeah.
than the actual physical store. And so, we're always trying to find that next project that we can sort of support, but only one that needs our support, if that makes sense. We're not just
Mhm.
going to throw support that isn't actually needed. And so, we're always looking for something that works for us as a business, but also that can sort of foster something out there in the community as well.
Backing on from what Chris is saying, that we do find it if we can help as a launching pad for a lot of people, which is great in building those partnerships. But we find it's very a family community,
Mm.
and that's what we love about it. Whether that's at Conquest or Arc, I would say, and this comes from both my experience in the video games industry as well as this industry, that I find that the creativity from Australian developers is a lot more diverse than what you find overseas. I think the European market is that as well. The American market, I don't think are as creative in that way. And in, I suppose, let's use it in the word of Steve Jobs, challenging the status quo. But that's what I find, at least the Australian industry is like.
I will say, there's the creative side, and I agree with Tez that, the people we've met in the creative side are doing some amazing things. I think one thing that unfortunately can't be avoided is, the Australian market's tough. It's really, really tough compared to, the behemoth that is America or even the European market. If you're starting as a creator here and you're hoping to sell the game that you've put your heart into just to Australians, that's going to be tough. And that's something that we've sort of encountered as well. Like even, Glowcraft, my laser cut company, half my sales go to America. And, if they didn't, I'd be in a lot of trouble, to be honest. And, so we find that as well. We do offer shipping overseas and we do that sort of stuff as well. But, we're still not fully established outside of Australia. And to be honest, Australia is our home. So that's where we want to play. But it is interesting, when we talk to other creators that are making games and making not just tabletop games, but also board games, they all kind of say us, and then Tez, tell me if I'm wrong here, but they all say to us, if we don't break into America, we don't have a product, really.
Yeah.
And I wish that wasn't the case. I wish that wasn't true. But it does seem to be, I guess, the reality at this point. And so, we're trying to do what we can because we want to bring more games in. We've co-funded one game in Spaceship Readout already. We're going to be co-funding a new game pretty soon, which is pretty exciting. But yeah, we're always thinking to ourselves, okay, well, what can we do to help it go to another country? And one of the thoughts Terry and I have had, somewhat selfishly, is maybe we physically go to another country and bring the games with us. That's something we've been talking about for a little while, and that may still be a little bit in the horizon. But that's something we're thinking, if America won't come to Australia, we'll take Australia to them, basically. It's something we may do in the future, yeah. But I think the other thing is that the social engine that is America does make it very difficult for, a small creator who only has a couple of $100s behind them to actually get that social reach into another country and start to do social posts and get followers and backings and all that sort of stuff to, really catch on to the idea that they have. It's just, they may have something amazing, but if no one sees it, then people won't know how to support it, right? And I think that's more what I'm speaking to.
I'd also add in there as well with America, they've got a lot more distributors over there as well. So
Mm.
the market's a bit more spread out, where in Australia we're very, I hate to say this word, but it's very monopolized here. So that can prove it challenging, but at the same token, it is a population thing as well.
So, yeah, one of the games that we co-funded was Spaceship Redoubt, which is kind of like imagine Among Us as a short social deception game. Although I will say it was created and designed before Among Us was a thing. It's just we can use that as a good analog to explain it. So Spaceship Redoubt was first. But yeah, it's a really, really fun game. I like it. If you've ever played like Coup Resistance or Secret Hitler or any of those sorts of games where there's like that deception element, it is that, except you can actually change your allegiance mid-game if you realize your team's losing. And that adds really interesting elements where you actually may deliberately tank your team's performance to then defect at the end of the game. Very, very fun. But yeah, so to that, the next game that we're going to be co-funding with the creator is Murders at Tealwood's Manor, which basically, I'll try and explain it the way I can. And if I don't explain it well, Terry can jump in and explain it. The way I understand it is you're kind of a third-person view looking down on the events of like a murder mystery. And it's kind of like Clue, except that it's already happened. And basically what you're trying to do is your version of the events has to be the way you win the game. So you already know who the murderer is, you already know who the investigator is, and what you're trying to do is just create the events that your cards should happen. So this person needs to die, this person needs to live, and everyone else is trying to do the same thing. So it creates this chaotic game where everyone's trying to manipulate the board to tell the story the way they remember it, which is really, really fun. So it's a bigger project for us. It's a bigger physical box. It's a more expensive game. It's a bigger investment from us, but we're excited by it. It's pretty cool. And I won't spill the beans on the next one fully, but we are in talks with someone we'd worked in the past for a tabletop book system that they've done, and they did so well with it, but they lost their distributor. So we're trying to find a way that we can help them bring that product back to life as well. But I can't say too much about that until it actually happens. But yeah, we want to do more of that as well.
I suppose the big thing would be research, obviously researching the market as well, but Facebook groups. I think Facebook groups are a huge, huge thing for people to look at to get started.
I think the biggest thing for me is, and I've seen this from looking at other board game creators and tabletop creators, like one, back your idea. If you like your idea, you need to back it. But two, don't let that backing shield you from taking feedback. I think that's a really big one. Some people can become so protective of an idea that they have that they won't let it grow or mold further than where they've taken it. And I think it's a really big one. When I started doing, I don't make games, but I make laser cut products, right? And if I never listened to what my customers said, I'd never make products that they wanted to buy. And it's really, really important to understand what people actually want and listen
Yeah.
to the suggestions that people have. I worked with Joe, who was the developer of a game called Squendo, and it's a fantastic game, but he play tested it over 100 times, and he basically handed it to what was becoming a fandom around it to craft what the rules should be, which was so fascinating. He really just had this sort of approach of, well, the people playing it are probably going to be the best people to tell me what a good game is, and I can craft and learn from this. And the game changed so much from its original iteration that he showed me the first version of it, and I'm like, this isn't even the same game. And I think that's really, really important. But as Terry says, you need to build a following. You need to build this group that is going to back the game and support it and provide feedback and take it further. And yeah, I think the big one is, don't stop. That's a big thing, right? We all face this fear that our thing's not going to work, and then we manifest making it not work. It's very easy to stop something when you think it's going to fail in the start. And I think the amount of people we've spoken to that have never made anything in their life, but they have these amazing ideas, and you just go, oh my God, that sounds so good. Like, I really hope you grab onto that. And unfortunately, a lot of them won't, is a little bit heartbreaking, right? So yeah, I think if you've got an idea and you want to do it, I mean, don't walk into it blind, but try it. Do the thing, play test it. It doesn't cost a lot of money, especially if it's about making a game like a tabletop system or a board game. It doesn't cost a lot of money to, gain access to a printer and print off things. Art doesn't have to happen straight away. The concept can just be there. But you need to share it with people, as Terry says. If you don't share it, it's not going to get support when you try and sell it later on. So I think that's a big thing.
It's that leap of faith.
If you're thinking of starting a board game store, do be careful. We started a commercial board game store selling commercial board games, but you've got to remember that behemoths like Amazon and things like that exist, and they are very, very good at automatically adjusting pricing to compete with you. And, if you're selling something that's not unique, if you're selling something that's exactly what everyone else can get access to, what is your difference? And what are you offering the community? Don't do something because you want money. Do something because you actually like the thing you're doing. I think that's really, really important. And if you like the thing
Yeah.
you're doing, people will see that, and they will back you. We have amazing people that come and speak to us and don't buy anything, and they just come and say hi because they like what we're doing. And that's kind of the main reason why we do it. Yes, we like money as well. That is important because we like to have dinner. But it's something we like doing. We do this. Both Terry and I have full-time careers that we do outside of this, and this is the fun time for us. And as soon as it becomes not the fun time, we're going to stop. So we've got to make sure that it's the fun time for as long as possible. Find something that you can still love, that people will support. Yes, that's a really big thing. I think the hardest thing that people learn is you may love something so much, but you're the only person that does. And that doesn't mean you give up on that thing, but I think it does mean that you need to also make something else in addition to that thing to help support the thing that you really, really love. And maybe people will eventually come around to the thing that you really love. Yeah.
So you can find us on our socials at Quest Suppliers. That'll be Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also visit us on our website at www.thequestsuppliers.com or .com.au. Yeah, and you'll find us at most Victorian events, and we're looking at expanding out to nationwide events probably in 2025. Yeah, so you'll find us at Oz Comic Con here in Melbourne in June.